We begin the hour with breaking developments in the Middle East, where fears the fighting in Gaza could widen into a regional hot war. The United States and the United Kingdom have launched airstrikes in Yemen at targets linked to Iran-backed Houthi militants. This is footage from Houthi media showing the strikes in Sana'a, which is Yemen's capital. U.S. Central Command also released video showing fighter jets launching from an aircraft carrier at sea. Officials say airstrikes and Tomahawk missiles were fired on at least 16 Houthi military targets. Canada and a number of other countries have provided support and say it's an attempt to restore order on the Red Sea. Houthi militants have launched attacks on commercial ships heading to Israel. The group says it's carrying out those attacks in response to Israel's war in Gaza. There are fears the strikes will worsen an already critical situation. Several regional powers, including Turkey and Iraq, have condemned the attacks. And just into us this hour, there are reports the International Association of Independent Tanker Owners is advising members to avoid the strait leading into the Red Sea. At least 4 oil tankers have reportedly diverted course following these new strikes in Yemen. Global Affairs Canada did not specify last night, has not yet, what Canada's support entailed. And CBC News inquiries were met with a direction to this joint statement. It was issued alongside the U.S., the U.K., Australia, and a number of other allies. The joint statement says the precision strikes are meant to disrupt the Houthis' ability to carry out attacks on Red Sea shipping. It goes on to say the countries involved hope for de-escalation and stability in the region, but will not hesitate to defend lives and the free flow of commerce in international waterways. U.S. President Joe Biden says he is not ruling out further strikes if necessary. Sources are telling the New York Times this morning that support from Canada and other allies likely includes logistics and intelligence, but we'll be looking to get further information and clarification from Ottawa today. As far as the story of the attacks, let's go to Rebecca Collard, who's live with us this morning. Rebecca, these are generating a lot of reaction this morning, a lot of concern, but a lot of reaction around the world and in the region. I was mentioning Turkey. That's a part of the most recent reaction. What are you seeing and hearing this morning?
Yeah, you know, what's interesting, Heather, is that we've heard from Iraq, Oman, and also Jordan and Turkey, of course, which are in theory U.S. allies, and they have all really condemned these strikes and talked about the fear that they have that this is going to escalate things further. So, of course, as we talked about, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken just wrapped up a tour of the region where he said one of his main objectives was to ensure there was no spillover of this conflict into the region, that there was no regional conflict. And now we're seeing these strikes on Yemen. Now, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan went as far as to say that these strikes could turn the Red Sea into a sea of blood. So really strong words, really strong condemnation from countries in the region of these strikes, even though I will say, Heather, all of these countries, of course, depend on this shipping route. They also have, financial losses to contend with because of the fact that the Houthis have been able to disrupt shipping in that route. Now, Russia has also condemned these strikes and has actually called for an emergency session of the UN Security Council, which should take place in the next hours here. So, of course, we will be following that as well. And I'll just say from the perspective of the Houthis, what we've heard from them is that these strikes by the US and the UK, and of course, as you said, backed by other countries, will not stop them from carrying out more attacks on vessels in the Red Sea, that they will continue to do that, Heather, until there is a ceasefire in Gaza.
So you mentioned Antony Blinken, and on his diplomatic mission, he did warn of consequences if these attacks didn't stop. They didn't stop, and Joe Biden then authorizing the attacks which took place last night. Why did the U.S. and the U.K. move when they did last night?
Yeah, that's a great question, Heather. And I think partly because the economic impact has become so heavy for so many countries. So, many shipping companies are no longer sending any cargo through that route, so they're taking this much longer, much more expensive route. I've heard that insurance for ships that are going through that route are 10 times as much. And then just to give you an idea, here in Germany yesterday, the Tesla manufacturer said that they were going to have to shut down production at a Tesla plant here in Germany for 2 weeks because of these attacks. And I think that while there's this fear of a regional escalation, there is also the U.S., the U.K. wanting to send a message to the Houthi rebels, which of course are allied with Iran, are part of this so-called axis of resistance, that they will not tolerate these sort of attacks. So I think obviously there's this economic concern because of these attacks that the Houthis have been carrying out, but also I think that the U.S. wanted to send a message that these things will not be tolerated by the Houthis or by other countries that are part of this, or the militant groups that are part of this axis of resistance. Heather.
Rebecca, thank you so very much. Rebecca Collard live for us this morning.